Hello, everyone. We're officially starting our webinar. Thank you, Hicham and Meshari, for joining us to share your experience with us today in this webinar. I'm Aslam Souli. I'll be sharing some thoughts as well as moderating this webinar. I'm a medical doctor in Tunis and Chief Medical Officer at Epilert. And our webinar today will be about the impact of technologies on developing healthcare monitoring and diagnosis tech. We have very two important experiences with Hicham and Meshari. I think the people that will be listening to us will be very enthusiastic to hear your experiences and your thoughts about the subject. So we will not take a lot of your time. We have like less than 60 minutes to share as maximum as we can. So just to give some introduction, I give you the floor to introduce yourselves, your works, and then maybe we will do a follow-up question based on what you present to get further in discussion. Hicham, you have the floor. So let's start with your presentation.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just a small introduction. My name is Hicham Shatou. I'm born in Djibouti, grew up in Africa, studied in the Netherlands, spent some time at MIT in Boston, founded LeQuest almost 10 years ago. LeQuest trains and certifies healthcare professionals for the use of medical technology. We do that for nurses, doctors, anesthesiologists, radiology technologists, a really broad scope of targets group. Our solution is our online guided simulation trainings where they learn how to master the equipment. We do that we are currently active in 22 countries, collaborating with the biggest manufacturers in the world, going from Philips, GE, Medtronic, Siemens. And one of the things that I'm also participating is I'm a co-founder of an investment fund in the Netherlands for medtech companies. So that spectrum of diagnostic remote technologies is something that's close to me, and I'm really honored to be here and helping you with some of my experiences and judgment calls in there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Meshari, you have the floor.
Hello everyone, my name is Meshari Alwashmi. I'm also originally from Saudi Arabia and been in Canada over the past 12 years. My academic background is a mix of healthcare, so I have a bachelor's in nursing, master's in medicine, epidemiology to be specific, and my PhD in pharmacy was focused on bringing healthcare professionals together and patients to identify the barriers and facilitators to use digital health and the management of chronic diseases. And right now I'm the Chief Scientific Officer of BreatheSuite. So created an add-on device that can be added to any type of meter dose inhaler and to other inhalers to enhance the management of chronic lung diseases. So we'll be able to know when the patient took their medication and if they took it correctly or not, given that most of them didn't know how to take it well. I'm also a guest editor at the International Journal of Public Health, peer-reviewed multiple papers in the Journal of Medical Informatics Research, Nature Medicine, and other journals as well. I have several publications in the field, and I'm excited to share some of the findings and some of the work I've learned, and I'm thrilled to be here with the Epilert team and Hicham.
Thank you so much. Very happy to have you with us sharing your experiences. So also some brief introduction about Epilert. As you may know it, it's a company that is trying to develop and is developing a wearable device that we put in the wrist to diagnose the seizures. We focus on tonico-clonic seizures with the motor components that we can detect with other sensors within the wearable device, and also developing with it a software solution for patients on their phones to help them maintain their treatment and, of course, monitor better the patient or the relative who is suffering from some epileptic seizures when it happens. Excellent. So let's try to talk some healthcare and technologies. we're gonna enjoy this discussion. I think everybody is eager within this COVID-19 pandemic. 2020 was a crazy year. A lot of explosion of health IT. Everybody is talking about improving the health care services, getting online, reaching to patients from distance. So general questions, a question based on your experience. We've been witnessing a major development in technologies related to healthcare. How would you describe this development and its impact? Hicham, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you. Listen, to tell the truth, 2020 came as a blessing for all medical technology founders, inventors, technologists, just to force the market to understand how much help we can provide to them. So although the crisis itself is a nightmare, we are feeling every day the impact of the disease, not only on patients, but on the loved ones, and the amount of deaths are really sad to notice every day. I think for the awareness of what technology can provide patients and the support to the general healthcare industry and all, it's been an eye-opening. It took some time because first you had chaos, you had panic, and then they went searching for institutionalization of technology and implementation of it. And we've seen, at least in Western Europe, a big acceptance of the implementation of wearable digital solutions within the markets.
Good. Meshari?
I believe I totally agree with Hicham. It's a nightmare and also a blessing. I think COVID caused some sort of a cultural transformation of the way we approach it, the way we deal with healthcare technology and the perceptions of people. There was a lot of physicians that I spoke with, for example, that been in the field for about 40 years, never used these technologies, and then they used it and they were very comfortable and surprised of how effective it is. It was interesting that some of the research about the barriers and facilitators of adoption I published in 2019, just before the pandemic, and it's interesting to see some of them exist. A lot of people were believing, but there was a huge limitation in terms of awareness. A lot of people didn't know what exists, and they were just disbelieving in what it is. But COVID forced people to try it, and it was successful on many levels. It's unquestionable now that it's going to bridge the gap of healthcare monitoring, and we could discuss healthcare monitoring further if needed, and discuss some examples that are very innovative, and to see that coming to the next level is actually extremely exciting.
Good. So building on what you said, like here in Tunisia, for example, many IT solutions were available to to healthcare professionals, but they were never used until, like you said, we had to face the COVID-19 pandemic, which brings me to a follow-up question. When it comes to healthcare, generally speaking, in the practice, medical doctors like me, they have a lot of resistance in establishing new ways when it comes to clinical diagnosis and to treatment of their patients. So what could you say about that? How did you overcome that resistance? How do you work with that? For example, Hicham, I see you laughing already because you are facing that challenge. If you can share some thoughts, because it's very important when it comes to health IT to understand the obstacles you face, the challenges you have, mainly when you deal with doctors, nurses, and healthcare professionals who have already a daily routine that is working, and they are treating their patients, they are monitoring their patients. So how can we be more helpful when it comes to this level?
So if you will allow me, Meshari, I will answer that. What we've seen is this crisis created a disorientation moment for all healthcare professionals, because doing the things they used to do the way they liked it and did it every day couldn't work. So it was a hard reset. And what you see then is that people will still look at the daily flow. Most of healthcare professionals have the ability to have a decent phone, so they have smartphones, but they are still depending on faxing, files of patients to another. And that's reality. We've still had files being sent per post, even in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So they accepted that within the umbrella of the hospital, things don't go as fast as outside. And I think this crisis helped create that awareness. I think that bringing in user-friendliness, technology, user-friendly, that created an ease of use, created also an acceptance for, oh, this should also be possible within our walls. And one of the things that we've been promoting for 10 years almost with LeQuest is ensuring that the healthcare professional get to master the equipment they do, because until now, even in the education, they are more focused on anatomy and patients understanding the treatment, but not the tools that they can leverage to get more information, but also do their job better. And this crisis created that awareness where they are open to suggestion and got out of the daily flow, because reality is such 90% of the time they are just with patients, and within that 10% you are too tired if you have administrative work to learn a new skill. But that with this crisis had to change, and it created space for them to see how they can optimize their own workflow, and I think that helped a lot.
Excellent. Meshari?
So to your point, I think lack of awareness is a huge one. But now with COVID, they're understanding and getting it more. But I believe another point is credibility. They wanted to have more credibility for these products, and to get credibility is one thing that if there's an American medical, a medical association or a pharmacist association or a nursing association, they would go in and say, these are approved, these are technologies that we've vetted, and we think that it needs to be used. That's one way to raise awareness and improve credibility. And then you have the publications as well. If a technology have a solid background or solid team behind it, that enhances the credibility. But one that's extremely important, regardless of credibility or regardless of anything, is, as you suggested, Hicham, is usability for both patients and healthcare professionals. You can develop the best technology in the world. If it's extremely hard and difficult to use, we will not use it. Simply, research has shown that about 70% of people would delete an app after the first day of using it, and after 3 days, 90% of these apps will be deleted. And we've noticed similar trend to healthcare. And when we dug deeper and learned more, a lot of it was related to usability. So we need to take a step back. And when we're developing these technologies, usually, sometimes, sadly, developers are not the users of the technology. So if you're developing something, either it's for a physician or for whoever it may be, you need to involve them in the development process. Create a small team of these people, have them on your side that you can bounce off ideas and get them to go through different iterations of the product that you're doing. I actually established a framework with a professor I met at Stanford called the iterative convergent design. And I don't want to get very technical here, but what it does is it essentially streamlines the process of getting the product in the hands of the users, and it has sample questions that can be used so you can elicit more information from the users and integrate it before you move in and develop that. And a lot of, I think, we need to also use prototyping software more because it's an easy way to get feedback from people of what works and what doesn't. That is faster and also reduces the cost of development. So if you use that a lot, you could enhance definitely the usability and the uptake of the technology. One example of technology that's been very successful is the Echo Stethoscope. So the Echo Stethoscope, essentially what they've done is they added some sort of a microphone to the stethoscope, and that data was taken, and now they built artificial intelligence algorithms to pretty much bring cardiologist knowledge to listen to that the sounds that are coming from that stethoscope and help people understand and learn more about health tech. So showing healthcare professionals examples of successful technologies like that could also help, hopefully, facilitate adoption more.
Excellent. Well, just to interact with the points you're mentioning, the key word is credibility. Like you said, I think it's a process to get that credibility. It's a long one. It might be an expensive one, and challenging for a lot of companies in the health tech fields. Maybe it would be nice to hear from you how some experiences on how to gain that credibility. How did you succeed in getting that credibility in your experiences? Because it's one of the main challenges facing entrepreneurs in the field of health tech. In Epilert, we're facing that challenge. We are overcoming some of it. We get new ones to get over, and it's a long one, and it gets expensive. It gets long, and it can actually make you access market very late, or make you wait a long time. So what are your thoughts on that?
Hicham, would you like to begin?
Okay, maybe some background. So with LeQuest, just to give you context, we've raised up to date almost 18 million. So funding is crucial if you want to success in the healthcare. Yeah. The challenges there is, on average, also in our investment fund, you need, for validation of an idea, just to get some relationship with the launching customer, get some feedback from patient, that iteration with a small group to be able to build a prototype will take you 1 to 2.5 years to get that done, because you are depending on the time of professionals that are already busy, and in between you need to stick in and get their feedback, go work on it, come back. So that takes some time. Once you get that and you have something that you think you can build on, we've seen that you need at least between 300 to 700,000 to be able to get something that you can get tested and certified. But this means you need a QMS system, you need clinical studies, you need to get, so those steps in some regions where understanding the life cycle of medical technology companies is really difficult. And this is where I see a lot of startups, entrepreneurs with great idea not make the cut. Location is crucial, but also an understanding it's a long tail. In the healthcare industry, you're not talking about hit and run. Before you can build up something, you will be already 4 to 5 years further, and then you can get traction. And this is something that we've experienced at LeQuest. It took us 5 years to get validation from the market before we got some traction within the big manufacturers. But once you can go through that, then you need to build a whole sales team, marketing team, positioning, and then you think, okay, we got that, so it will happen. And then the lawyers come, and then the regulation per country come. But if you can go through those hurdles, the reward and the impact on patients and patient safety can be really worth the trouble. In my eyes.
Great points, Hicham. I think to improve credibility, I think showing some sort of traction, showing that there is physicians or nurses or healthcare professionals that are excited about your product, are excited of where your product is going to go. Surrounding yourself with capital, smart capital, like Hicham, for example, people who've been through the process and understand the process, understand how long it will take. That's important. But one thing that in the academic world is happening is a lot of people are evaluating digital health technologies the same way they're evaluating a drug, which is a problem. A drug doesn't change with time. A medical technology changes every sometimes month. So as it changes, as you release new firmware or software or all of these changes, sometimes that one single change could enhance and change the outcome. So we're starting to see different adaptive clinical trials. But in terms of a framework, there was a paper that was published in Nature. I tried to put the link in the chat, but I couldn't. I could email it after. But it talks about different frameworks from the Federal Drug Administration, the FDA, from the World Health Organization. There is a lot of guidance is trying to help, but they're growing. There is no final solution because all of these digital health technologies are different. You can't have one size that fits all. But one thing that you can think about is thinking carefully about the clinical trial design. Instead of developing a trial that's going to last for years, you can develop something that you can get pretty much at least an early signal from in the early days, and use that to help you prove that, okay, see, this happened, and based on that we could move towards that. And one thing that's happening in the current space now, and we're trying to leverage more, is modeling studies. So showing, maybe using some sort of a pilot study to show that there are some signals that exist here, and based on these signals and the modeling that we've done, we're able to predict that. So I think that's going to explode in the next few months and years as well, and that's going to be one solution to allow us to vet these startup ideas and gain a better understanding of how to evaluate them. I think that's what I can think of right now. And but I wouldn't be discouraged from clinical trials, and try to pretty much use what exists in the. If you find a technology that's similar to what you're doing, even if they're doing something else, you can go in and leverage some of their study designs to be able to understand it further. And don't be afraid to reach out to academics. If you find a research article that resembles something you're trying to use, there is always a corresponding author. Feel free to reach out to them, talk more about them, collaborate with them to get some of that work done.
Excellent. So basically, keywords, it's healthcare tech is a long-term investment. You need to have patience, and you need to be wise. You need to know how to manage to reach certain goals, to make people see the outcomes, and not wait too long to see an outcome, because it's also an issue when you make people wait and see, and the wait takes a long time. So nobody will be waiting that long. So basically, it's small successes that are leading to a major success, and that's the major idea. So basically, one thing to interact very quickly is as you were talking, is the word evaluating, evaluation, etc., etc. There is like an international, let's say, movement or interest in the world that is increasing when it comes to health industry and health tech specifically, to evaluate all these kind of technologies, medical gadget, medical devices, etc., etc. This debate, for example, I was witnessing last week in Tunisia with the Neurology Institute of Tunis, where a lot of professors were saying it's too much technology for us. We don't know what to use anymore. What can we choose from it? Which one will be the best in making me gain, make some time, reduce certain, let's say, time to put it in other activities. Also, maybe make it cost effective. It's not very expensive to the doctor to use it, and it's not very expensive to the patient as well. So what do you think about all these stuff? Because it's really challenging when it comes to the field. What I'm, as a doctor, as a healthcare professional in certain specializing in a certain field, what should I use? What should I drop? What should I follow? What are the parameters that I'm going to follow to use your solutions, for example?
So if you allow me, Meshari, I will answer this one in twofold. Usually in those sessions, the target group is about 50 to 60. So those guys went through the change of having to wait on the internet connection through the phone to be able to type in their URL. And they are going to deal with technology built by kids that have always only knew Google and only knew to find an answer. You have the great web world out there. So the experiences of those two target groups and accepting technology is totally different. The challenge and what you've seen from other industries, Microsoft will upgrade Windows if you like it or not, and will give you a better version as an end user. The challenge that we are having in the healthcare industry is that those changes are depending on the target group. And I can promise you some of those doctors will still be on Windows 95 if it didn't upgrade itself. So those are considerations that we need to understand the human behavior. At the same time, penetration and traction, like with any solution, is about the adoption rate. How many doctors are still using that technology and willing to promote it, the clinical value, and of course the cost. but having only 3 or 4 use your technology while you cannot cross that chasm will never make it successful. So you need to find a way from a technology point of view to get adoption penetration in a much broader sense. And to be able to do that is what Meshari says. You need to understand your target group and how to create a user-friendly product that will attract more users. What you've seen with a lot of tech companies nowadays, and I just had a call with Amazon this afternoon here in the Netherlands. You have Apple, Amazon, even Google going into wellness. Why? They are creating medical graded solution, but tested in a wellness world to get the user feedback to understand how to optimize it before certifying it. And
Yep.
those are approaches that might help also from a technology point of view to get the doctors to try things without paying for it, just to find out if they like it, adapt it to their needs, and then have a model that you can scale. So that will be my 2 cents on this.
Good.
Definitely. It's a challenge, and they believe based on each country there is different challenges that they go through. There is a huge there's a huge similarities in how to evaluate these technologies, but each country is different, and they believe it's a responsibility of medical associations or the Ministry of Health to be able to create a group, and that group will be able to assess these technologies and provide some sort of a certification to give these clinicians peace of mind before adopting certain technologies. And we see that happening in the NIH in the Netherlands, in England. They have some sort of an app store that approve all of these technologies. And to create that team, you'll need clinical experts, you'll need tech experts to see how feasible the solution is. You need people that are expert with human factors to make sure that it's easy to use. You need people who are aware of privacy and the security of information. That all need to be considered before recommending these technologies. But yeah, I think in terms of finding a common solution, there is that publication on Nature. Again, I couldn't put the name, but it's published in 2020 by Soobih, S-O-O-B-I-A-H. I believe once you Google that, you'll be able to get it.
We'll stalk you on this.
Okay, so very nice thoughts. Thank you for this brilliant sharing that we're having. So basically, I wanted to let's say to share a little bit of our story in Epilert when it comes to accessing the let's say the medical society in Tunisia, for example, and in other countries. So basically, we started with some focus groups at the beginning in the Tunisian hospitals. We met with doctors, neuropediatrician mostly, to understand the needs they have in monitoring the seizures of children that are epileptic. The need is real. They do have a problem in monitoring those patients, in knowing how many seizures they had, did they have one while sleeping or not, etc., etc. So the interesting part is that they say they are facing the challenge, and they're at the same time skeptical from any kind of technology that might, let's say, help them in the that part was very interesting to work with them to understand what is the specific needs they want from this technology, what kind of technology they do need, what kind of monitoring they do need. And basically we were successful to build with them a set of let's say information that they can collect through the app, through the wearable device, from the patients, with interacting with the patient as well. And it helps them to better understand the history of the patient, to better understand how many seizures did he have, under which treatment, etc., etc. And we're seeing, let's say, a certain acceptance, and it's starting to spread, let's say, somehow within the society, but it's a slow pace because you have to go one by one, convince one by one, go to their association, like Meshari said earlier, present your results, The credibility process is a heavy one, a long one, and it's like you said earlier, it's small successes leading to a major one at the end. The process is now also in the US with the FDA regulations, and also trying to build our clinical trials in the US. So basically, it's a funny interaction and a challenging one, because you have to let's say, to respond to a need. At the same time, the practitioners that are working on that pathology or that illness are already doing or using certain methods that are, let's say, old-fashioned, if we can say that. But you can make them win time. You can make them enjoy the monitoring of their patients on a daily basis remotely, and that's very fascinating. I think it's a promising thing in the medical world to see these monitoring technologies developing further and further. The question that I would like to ask you and hear your thoughts about is, do you have stories to share, for example, about certain monitoring devices that were successful and led to, let's say, facilitating the diagnostic process for medical doctors? And also, if you have, let's say, stories of failures, maybe, because we can learn from them as well. Because some of the doctors would say certain tech, certain apps, certain technologies were contributing to diagnostic errors instead of contributing in having the right one. So basically, this is like a follow-up question on what I was saying. If you have any question as well for me, I'm here to answer as well.
So I'm a shareholder in a company called HappyTech, and HappyTech built an algorithm that allows you to measure your heart rate, AFib, through the camera of your phone. It's an iOS and an Android solution that got traction as a gaming algorithm, you know, so that you can measure your heartbeat while you play and gain points with it. That then got translated to wellness solution to really for stress app, implemented in a lot of stress apps, that then got used by the Cooper Institute for fitness. So you see a growth on the steps of implementation of such a technology. And then we found out that a third of all cardiology patients are unnecessary, because those are patients that thought they felt something, but they didn't measure, they didn't have any remote measurement solution to know if it's AFib or not, irregularities in their heartbeat or not. And we got that app rolled out in a hospital in the Netherlands. So with the hospital, we said, okay, let's do it. Let's do a trial, a pilot, to see how it works. So once it got rolled out, it got a lot of traction in the media. So the association and the FDA of the country, the CE and inspection, fined the hospital $250,000 for the implementation of a technology that hasn't been certified. So it wasn't even about the solution algorithm, it was about the steps. So based on that, we did the clinical trial, we validated it, and we were trying to get recognition from the market again for it. Now comes COVID, where there are no visits to the cardiology department, where all cardiologists in the Netherlands are complaining about not being able to know how the patients are doing. And giving Holters or a life core was too expensive, so they were looking for low cost but easy access solution that's really scalable for the whole country. At that moment, HappyTech was medically graded, and this led to an acceleration of the implementation of that SDK within the national Corona app. So they had the Corona app, and then they had the cardio app. So although it started with they got fined and they hated it, that same hospital now is one of the biggest launching customer for an app that's been pushed nationally in the Netherlands. And I think the difference in there is the speed of the country in recognizing those kind of initiative and doing clinical studies. Within the last 14 months, they did 7 clinical trials, it has gotten to a point that it's being reimbursed for the hospital by the insurance companies as a tool, as a diagnostic remote tool. So those are the things that I see are happening in the Netherlands, where I must say innovation and connectivity are really high, and people understand how to optimize the use of technology. So from my experiences, what I experienced close by is you're gonna get a spanking if you do it the wrong way and you don't know the rules, although the intentions are right. So you need to get that experience and get the right experts, as Meshari says. But at the same time, once it's there and it can solve a problem, even the toughest technology skeptic will use it to monitor the patients because they care about the patients. And in this crisis, this helped us a lot. So this is from my own experience, what I've seen with one of the companies I'm involved with.
That's a great story, Hicham. And to your point, making sure that you focus on your product more than selling your product is key. Once you have a product that actually works, going to help patients and save lives, then moving to the selling part will become much easier. One example of a failed company, I'll start with the failure, move the negatives out of the way first, is a company called Proteus. It's a smart pill company. They raised billions of dollars and then they went bankrupt. So you can raise all the money you want, but if you don't have the right experts on the board and the right people to execute and deliver on the mission and the promises of the company, then regardless of how much money you raise, you're going to go bankrupt, even with what you're trying to develop. So they actually got bought out by another company now that's helping to solve that and hopefully bring it, because it's a very interesting concept, a smart pill that you can digest, and it will help us understand how you metabolize certain drugs or certain foods and certain things. A successful company that I think startups can do a much better job, or other medtech companies can do a much better job at that, is to leverage your marketing team. Like one of my favorite technologies actually this year. It's the Oura Ring. I think it's Dutch, isn't it?
No, it's Nordics. They are from Norway, close by, cousins from here.
So I think that so this is the smart, the second ring that they use is a smart ring, and I'm very happy with it. Okay. And seeing, so I've been following their progress and what they've done. One thing that they did, which was brilliant, is with their marketing. For example, they went to the NBA when COVID happened to start to bring players back, and through that increased the word of mouth after the NBA adopted it. Another tennis corporation, and also I believe the UFC. So going to having, a sports people that are using sports, for example, finding people with epilepsy that have sports and use the watch and like it, and to talk about it and share their experience can be extremely powerful. Even more powerful is if you find the leading scientist or physician, the leading neurologist that can adapt the product. One thing we were able to do successfully is we brought in Dr. Mark Fitzgerald to our advisory board, who is the past chair of the Global Initiative for Asthma. So having that on our board to advise us whenever we need have any questions, it made the selling part much easier. I think so. Building on the credibility, utilizing your marketing team could help you overcome many of these challenges. But again, as Hicham mentioned, make sure your product works and does its job first before you move on to that step.
I agree with that.
Excellent. So maybe I will. Maybe to sum up our webinar tonight, Tunisian time, it's almost 8 p.m. I think Pacific time it's almost noon. So I will ask you a final question. What would you, let's say, in 3 piece of advice for entrepreneurs in medtech? What would be the 3 steps or the 3 advice you will give them to follow, and that they need to keep in their head when they are moving forward with their businesses?
You or me, Meshari?
If you want me to go first, I will do it.
I'd say,
yeah, go ahead, Meshari.
I would say fail fast and iterate. That would be one. And just try to find the quickest way to find out if your product is going to work or not, and iterate, move on to the next change of find a different market. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. People didn't believe Uber or Airbnb or even a smart ring could be as big as it is. And the third one, well, I think about it and let Hicham go ahead.
That's a good one. So get out of the building. That's one of the first things. So I used to be the TA of Ken Morse at the Entrepreneurship Center in Boston, and I spent some time with Steve Blank, which wrote the book, The Startup Manual. So one of the things that Steve used to tell to me, you know, feedback won't come to you, go and get it. So we spent really months on the floor of hospitals, in the OR, in the ICU, just to find out how technology is being used. And in creating new product or new ideas, you need that feedback. So get as much feedback as you can. Ask those questions that will get you value, and don't be afraid to iterate. As Meshari said, it's crucial to be able to understand your different targets group. So that's one. And it's something that I think all of you know from our upbringing, coming from North Africa and the Middle East. Who's your uncle? It's crucial within any industry. So in a small village in Africa, no one will ask who your dad and mom is, because they will always protect you. But they will always ask the security question: who is your uncle? So who's your reference point? Who's that guy that will tell me the truth, but I also can reach out to if you mess up? So understanding that the reputation and that validity check is crucial is only possible by getting a chairman that has a big experience in the healthcare industry, that is recognized within there, and that's willing to put his reputation on the line in supporting you. So getting the right uncles and the right team is crucial in there, and being also willing to be challenged. As I always say, if you are the smartest one in your team, you need a new team. So it's really upgrading, understanding that the guys that started with you when you were with 4 or 5 guys won't have the same position when you are with 100, because you need managers. It's a whole different ecosystem and different phases of the company, and be aware of that. So it's okay to understand change will come. So those will be my 3 advices, if you ask me so.
Well
said,
they were very interesting. So I think with these nice advice, we will sum up our meeting. Unless you have anything to add, Meshari, Hicham, I want to thank you on behalf of Epilert team. It was nice hearing from you today about your stories and your thoughts on medtech, on the questions that are very relevant to the context of COVID-19 pandemic. It made the world. It's making our life very hard, but also it's making medtech people and healthcare professionals, improve their monitoring ways, their treatment capacities, as well as using new technology. So basically, I want to thank you for your time, for the sharing your opportunity you gave us, and thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and have a good day, Meshari, there.
Thank you. And have a good night, everyone.
Nice to meet you guys.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Take care. It's my pleasure. Bye-bye.